2022. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you. If you have your agenda ready and in front of you, you see that the opening item for the work session is the community capital construction outlook. First, we'll go to non-agenda public speaking opportunities. See if we have anyone here that wants to speak on anything that isn't coming before us on the work session agenda. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that public comment opportunity. We'll get to the work session. I don't have a staff person listed, but I'm going to guess that we'll start with the city manager.
Good evening, Council. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Good to see everybody. I'll just give a quick introduction, and then I think I'll pass this off to our planning manager, Derek Taney. We, as you know, over the last year have been in partnership with Albany County to put together a long-range growth plan for the city's growth, which oftentimes, as you know, means expansion into unincorporated areas of Albany County. And so for that reason, the Board of Commissioners and the City Council have partnered to create a long-range growth plan. Tonight, we're intending to give an update of the progress being made toward the development and hopefully the eventual adoption of that plan by both the city and the county. With that, I will leave it with our planning manager, Derek Taney.
City manager, I just want to clarify, we have absolutely nothing to cover on the capital construction that's listed on the work session agenda.
Pardon me, you're correct. I skipped ahead. I introduced the second, not the first topic.
I do it all the
Council,
time.
Do you have a preference?
No, I do it all the time. Council, do you have a preference for this? Why don't we go ahead with that, with the order of the agenda, city manager, and we'll just stick with it. Okay.
All right, then let me introduce instead our Public Works Director, Brooks Webb. We had promised you that we would bring you kind of an overview of all of the major capital construction and investments that we intend to make for this upcoming season. Public Works and the engineering GIS team put together a great map for our residents so that they can look at that on our website. Brooks is going to walk you through it. And then the other thing that the mayor and vice mayor are aware of is that we started a conversation in the fall, mid to late fall, with our partners in capital construction activities, who would be WYDOT and the University of Wyoming. And we started that conversation just recognizing that the volume of work the city had planned was significant, and then also knowing that those two partners had some significant work planned over the next coming seasons. So Brooks is going to walk you through our information, and then I think there are some links to our partner agencies and where they may be planning to do work this summer. Hi, Brooks.
Hi, thanks, Jean. So I just want to confirm everybody can see the City of Laramie Construction 2022. Did I do that right? All right, good stuff. So this is on our webpage, the city webpage. We've got a link to it, and really it's for public information. And I'll just walk through it with you fairly quick. I mean, most of these projects you have all seen. Many of them have been awarded. Some of them are coming to you soon for award. So I'll just kind of show you how the map works and walk through the projects. As you scroll down, it gives you an overview. And keep in mind, these are just for the 2022 construction season. So this doesn't go out into the out years. We're trying to keep this just for this year so the public knows what's going on. So the first project we have listed is the 3rd Street Utility Rehabilitation Phase 2 project. As you know, that is underway. This is mainly a water main and service line project down Grand. We want to get in there and beat YDOT before they come in to put in their asphalt. There's a little bit of sewer work on this at Lewis, some manhole work, but other than that, it's primarily water. The really cool thing we got today was there's a link here, the construction status map. We got this today from our consultant who's doing the CMCA on the job. And if you click on that, it takes you to a map where you can actually look at the phasing of the project. So if you want to know when the work is going to happen between Clark to Fremont, and you click on that, it gives you the dates and the duration of that. So we just got that in today. We're going to fine tune it and get it out to the public for their information. I think it'll be really helpful for the business owners along 3rd Street. And then it shows you where the water line is in the project and all the service line connections that we're going to be making. So if we go down to our next project is the 9th Street Reconstruction Phase 2 project. You awarded this a few weeks back. We're currently awaiting the schedule from the contractor and their submittals. Either way, the project has to be completed before the end of October because that's when asphalt runs out. So we don't have a hard start date on that project yet, but it will be completed this summer. The B2 Sanitary Sewer Outfall Replacement Phase 1, this bid opened. It was $2 million over budget. So we're working with the contractor to rescope that before we bring it to you, and cutting part of the project down at this point. Basically, this is to upsize the water line for some future development. But a lot of that development isn't going to happen for 20, 30 years. But the area that really needs to be repaired right now is between Corthell to 18th. There's already a bottleneck there. So we're working with the contractor to scope this down to just replace Corthell to 18th on Spring Creek. The rest of the project is designed and we'll be looking at in the future to get that going. But when this comes to you, probably is what you're going to see is a reduced scope from the original project.
We got a question, Brooks, on that last item. Councilor O'Doherty.
Hey, Brooks, I think I've asked you this before, but is it possible in this case to do a parallel line instead of replacing, to have two that could maybe save some costs, or is the one that's there just in such need that that's not worth keeping?
Yeah, no, this one, especially between Corthell to 18th, is one, it's in bad condition, and two, it needs to be upsized. There's a kind of a bottleneck right there, and so that needs to be upsized now. The rest of the line can wait till the future. The sewer modeling has shown that. The boring that we were going to be doing from 17th basically down to 9th was a huge cost, and so we're going to be looking at different ways to do that in the future. But like I said, the main section that we've got to get done is Corthell to 18th.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Cedar Street Reconstruction, that project started this week. They got the road shut down, and same thing on that. The end construction date is October. We're assuming they're going to finish before then, but that's as late as they can go because of concrete or because of asphalt. But anyway, that project just got underway this week. One more thing, maybe I'll show you on this map. When you look over to the left, where it gives you the project description, it also gives you the project manager's contact name and contact number. And then we have a link there to click on. These are the public notices that went out to everybody in the area and also to all the media outlets. And so we've attached those to them. And I say we, it's really our GIS and engineering folks. It wasn't we, it was them. Flint Street Rehabilitation. This project is really, YDOT started this project as far as putting in their traffic signal there. We looked at the street when they were designing that, and we said, hey, can we partner with you? and get some street work done so that we don't have this nice new signal light with a really ugly street. The street in there, the PCI is really low, curb gutter sidewalks kind of a mess. So we've partnered with them. They opened bids, and this project's getting underway, but our understanding is the lead times on materials for the electronic components and the mast arms are ways out. So they're going to try hard to get it done this construction season. But depending on those material lead times, unfortunately, this may roll into next year. And I haven't necessarily heard that from YDOT, but that's what we're seeing. So I'm assuming that may happen. But I know they're really wanting to get that done this summer. The north side outfall line. This is a sanitary sewer, basically trunk line. It's an 85% design. We're currently working on easement agreements and YDOT permits. We need certain permits for YDOT where we cross over 287 there. When this project is being designed, the alignment of where this water line going is really taken into a lot of consideration for future development. The majority of that property there is owned by the same person, the same developer, and so we worked with their development engineers to lay this line out to accommodate his future development in the area. So a lot of coordination has gone into this project. This project is 100% funded with state revolving fund loan. North Side Tank project we just talked about last week in the budget work session. Bids came in way over budget, like $6 million. We're currently working or talking with the funding agencies, and we don't necessarily have a good direction yet. I'm hoping in the next couple of days we'll have that, and we'll be talking with the city manager on opportunities for moving forward on that project. Optimized drainage ponds, you all awarded a few weeks back. There was originally 3 ponds in this design. When the bids came in, we could afford to do 1. So our stormwater master plan had the drainage pond at Nighthawk ranked as the highest priority. So that's the one we brought to you, and that's the one you awarded. This project is going to mostly be out of the right of way, but there will be a short time that there's a street closure on 22nd as we do the tie-in to the storm sewer. So there'll be a week, maybe a little bit less closure on 22nd at some point during the summer while they get that tied in. Looking at the street network there, pretty easy to detour around that, so it shouldn't be a big issue. The priority sewer rehab, 3rd to 4th alley. This is a very new one for us. We had a developer come in. They're planning on putting a car wash there on 3rd Street between Soley and Canby. When we heard that, we went out to look at the capacity of that sewer line. We ran the camera down it, and it is in very poor shape. There's areas of it that are collapsing. It's a very old clay pipe. There's a lot of groundwater infiltration into that pipe. So a few weeks back, we brought you an amendment to Solterra's contract to design that. That's under design now, and we're hoping to get that built this summer and replaced this summer so that the development can be put in and pavement can go down in that area. So that one we're kind of pushing for really hard to get done before or at the same time as the development goes in. Priority sewer rehab, 13th to 14th. This is our #1 priority. Same kind of thing, clay pipe that's falling apart on us. This one got pushed up on the list last year, and we're just about done with the design. We're at 90%. Should be bidding it soon. So we should be bringing that bid award to council in the next month and a half, and get that construction going this summer and get that taken care of. The next project on our list is the Reynolds Sanitary Sewer Phase 2 line. You guys just awarded this one also last night, actually. This is the one we were really happy actually came in under budget. Like one. Yeah, anyway, this is replacing the sewer line between 9th to 11th, and really it's that upsizing that needs to be done there for the future development. And there'll definitely be some road closure on this. It's a very deep cut, and is what's going to hurt on this one is as far as road closures go, when we get to 9th Street, we actually have to go through the intersection of 9th Street to get to the next manhole, so that intersection will be closed for a time. We're going to try to limit that time as much as possible. Okay, so big project over in West Laramie. The first part of this is the West Laramie stormwater outfall. It's currently at 90% design. We've run into some conflicts with some franchise utilities. There's a fiber line that runs right where we want to put our storm sewer. And there's also some power poles that are in the right of way. And so we're working through that with the franchise utilities. This project, as we've worked through the storm drain part of it, is huge. I was talking with our engineering folks today, and about half of this length is 4 foot by 5 foot concrete culverts that are going in the ground. So this isn't your typical 12-inch pipe in the ground. This is 4 foot by 5 foot concrete box culverts that are going to be placed in here to carry a lot of water. And it's really it's carrying a lot of water because it's collecting for that whole area. This is the main trunk line for that whole area. Once this drainage system is put in, basically everything from Wyoming north can be paved in the future. The storm drain system will be there to tie into. So this is the really very important part of the project. It's got to get done first. There's this section up on Van Buren between Colorado and Buchanan. We're going to bid as a bid alternate. It doesn't necessarily need to go in right this second. And with the escalating costs we're seeing, we want to try to bid that as a separate item, just in case we need to cut that and bring that back as a different phase in the future. But we're pushing really hard to get this going this summer. The franchise utility conflicts have slowed things down a bit. We're working through that, but hoping to get some work going out there. Those big concrete box culverts, we're afraid the lead time on those is going to be a while. So this project is going to take some time. It's a big project and a lot of underground work that's going to be occurring. The wastewater treatment plant upgrade project is, as you know, that was awarded millions of dollars on this project to replace a lot of old 30-year-old equipment and get things back up to snuff out there. Also some huge energy savings that we have going into the project. This one shouldn't affect the public at all, but because it's such a big project, we wanted to put it on the map for people to know about, know it's there. Again, with this one, we're going to have some supply chain delays. There's a lot of equipment and controls involved in this that we're hearing lead times maybe up to a year. So as you can see there, our scheduled completion date at this point is fall of 2023. And depending on those lead times, those may push back a little bit. But project's getting underway. But again, with the supply chain issues, it's going to take some time. As far as our map goes for 2022, that's it. If there's questions on that, I'll be happy to take them now. That's fine. Thought I saw a hand pop up. No.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go right ahead. Yes.
Well, first of all, this website is so cool. I've been following along. So kudos to the staff. That's it's very cool to be able to slide through and find the projects. I was just wondering, is there any chance that we could get solar panels on that, the old lagoon ponds there at the treatment center, because it seems like a great place. It's so open. Is there anything we could try to do in the future?
Councilor Attorney, I know that is one of the sites that we've looked at in the past, and I want to say that one of the conflicts was the closeness or connection to the power grid. That infrastructure wasn't necessarily readily available, but you're right. There is a lot of land out there, and I think there's some opportunity there in the future. But some of those old ponds are required for overflow in emergency situations. So even though it looks like a ton of property, a lot of it is permitted for overflow, and I don't know that we would be allowed to put solar in all those. I think some of them are there's a possibility, but like I said, I think the issue we ran into in the past was that closeness to the power infrastructure.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
Here I have one.
All right. Right ahead.
Brooks, I was curious about 22nd and Willett. I know that the university was looking at a signal there. There was some discussion with the city, and possibly the university was going to go ahead and actually pay for it. Do you know the status of that?
Yeah, Councilor Gabriel, we had worked with the university for a while, looking at, they were really looking at a roundabout there is where they ended up landing. And we started to write kind of an agreement with them. We were going to have to move some sewer and stuff, but I think is what happened was with the dorm project fast approaching and all the work they needed to put in there, they asked us to hold off. So at this point, it's the 22nd Willett is not on the radar. I think they're concentrating their efforts over on the dorm side of things.
So signal is no longer in the discussion, but a roundabout would be the priority?
Well, for us, we did a traffic study there, and a signal or a roundabout was not warranted. The traffic study basically said that the way it operates now as a four-way stop is sufficient. But it said that a traffic signal would work okay too, or a roundabout. And so the university felt that the discussions at first was they wanted to do a traffic signal. And then after looking at it, I think they felt that a roundabout would be better. I'm not sure why, but that's how they felt. And so that's where they were leaning toward, was the roundabout. But at this point, like I said, it's not on the radar. And from the city's point of view, through our traffic study, says that the intersection is operating sufficiently.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Councilor O'Doherty.
I have one more question for Brooks. Will this website show, like with red, the parts, like if the street's going to be closed, like when it's actually closed? Will it be able to keep the public, like which section is closed at this moment, so that we could refer to people to it? I bet the wizards could figure it out, but I think that would be a really nice thing. Thanks.
Yeah, Councilor Doherty, I don't think that's a big deal. Our guys here in house, our GIS guys, are updating us. They did some updates for us on it today. And then as far as 3rd Street goes, if you click on that link, that's already there with the phasing. It'll tell you when certain items are closed. But on the other streets like Cedar and 9th and things, I think those are just easy updates for our GIS staff.
All right.
Yeah, the only other thing I wanted to add is on your cover sheet, I did add links to the construction map for YDOT and the construction map for the university. I know Janine mentioned that earlier, but just a reminder, I'm sure you've all used the YDOT map before, but yeah, you just click on the construction icon and then they'll show you all the stuff going on. They do a pretty good job about keeping that updated. Thanks, Mayor.
No, I really appreciate it. Thank you for being here and giving us that rundown. That was kind of a nice overview. And that mapping and the ability to be able to go and check those links out and see how it's moving along, that's a big deal. That's nice. I hope people will use it. All right, I don't see anything else. We'll go to I guess a public comment session on that and see if we have anything. Yeah, Vice Mayor Pierce.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think I'd just like to summarize briefly. I think the importance of this notification for the public to just learn and know what the city's doing. And then when you layer on top of that what the university is doing, and then add on top of that particular state projects that are coming or currently in the works, I think we have an effect that is going to be significant, not only for this coming up season, but future summers, future building seasons and road closures and activities for the next, Janine, help me out here, 3 to 5 years are going to be significant in this community. So our partnership with UW and putting their link on there and working with the state to kind of look at all the roads that are going to be closed, all the activities that are happening. We need to really prepare the public, prepare ourselves for many, many questions going forward. And folks that just need to understand, that some of these activities absolutely have to be done, and they have to be done because of economies of scale. I mean, we've got to get in there before YDOT shows up, right? We've got to do these projects holistically so that we can take advantage. I mean, when the road's dug up, you got to get in there and you got to fix anything and everything you can fix. And so coordination is huge, right? And we need to explain these pieces and parts to the community and tell them that it may be a little uncomfortable now, but it's going to really be good, once they're complete. So, and frankly, it's the only way we can grow, right? We've got to get infrastructure so that we can get some building happening and expand the community, which is kind of perfect that we're kind of going right after this to the growth plan information. So I think we just need to remind people that it all has to work together. I don't mean to ramble, but I think that's important for folks to know.
I agree 100%. And I think the council's beginning to be a broken record, and that record is going to stay broken probably on this topic of lots of construction for years, intense during the summer because that's the way it has to be, and timed with projects that are going on all over the community. If we're talking about YDOT, we want to try to do things that's going to seem like, well, weren't they just doing construction? Yes, we were. And we were doing it in preparation for this next phase of construction. And I don't think anybody thinks that's convenient, but it's much more inconvenient to have infrastructure falling apart all over the place and not keeping up with these things and doing them in tandem. So we're just going to keep talking about it a lot, as the Vice Mayor says. Outreach, communicating to the public, one of those things is going to be at pretty much every meeting. There's going to be some time spent on talking about the next construction thing coming, or the current progress of the construction thing, or the one that's happening after the one we're in the middle of right now. Councilor O'Doherty.
I just want to point out at the end of that, when you scroll the way down to the bottom of that website, which I now love, all along it has the click for notice letter, but at the very end it's like, get the civic engage, notify me, so people can click there and get the emails like we get. So It's a great website. So proud.
And what is that again? Just in case somebody missed it or listening later.
Notify me. Oh, the website.
Yeah.
That this is on. Oh, I don't
Okay.
know how.
Maybe the city manager has that for us.
Yeah. Well, it's in our agenda. You can.
Yeah, it's on the agenda. There you go. That's a great way to go find it easily. Okay. Well, thank you both. I agree. And the community, absolutely. It's going to be torn up with construction for the next couple of years here. But we have to do those things. You don't want to see what it's going to be, what it would be like if we didn't. I noted in the paper today, speaking of infrastructure, capital construction projects, things of that nature. I noted in the paper today, our friend community to the west here, the city of Rawlins, is still dealing with water issues, still dealing with water limitation issues. Frankly, my heart goes out to them. That's got to be terrible for everybody that lives in Rawlins. It's continue to be a problem. It's got to be horrible for the city government. It's really important to stay on top of these things and make these investments and get these projects done when and where we can. Not to disparage the city of Rawlins by any means. My point is that this is important stuff, and if it doesn't get done, serious consequences can result. Okay, enough of that. City manager, I know that you were ready to introduce this topic a little bit ago, so we'll hand it over to you now, and we're excited and interested to hear about this.
Yeah, thanks. I won't repeat what I said previously when I was a little out of order with the agenda. I think I'll just turn it over to Derek Taney. He can talk to you about what the City and County Intergovernmental Committee have been working on and our consultant. Hi, Derek.
Hi, Derek. City manager, please don't ever worry about that. I'm constantly out of order with the agenda and not knowing until I look at it again, so no worries there. Mr. Taney, welcome.
Council, welcome. Thank you for having us tonight. I think Brooks deserved to go first after our last meeting where we switched things around. Member Pierce was so nice to let planning go first, and man, you made a mistake there, didn't you? No. I'm just kidding. No. No, I'm glad Brooks got to get that out of the way and maybe go home. So, Council, tonight we have our long-range planning consultants, Logan Simpson, on tonight to kind of provide just an introduction / overview of kind of where we're at. We just recently kicked off the project. We were able to get in front of Planning Commission last week simply because they had no items on their agenda through a cancellation, and so we kind of jumped at that chance, and then actually through a cancellation for this evening, we're now here in front of the council. And so I think first off, just making sure you all are aware, we have hired consultants, which is Logan Simpson, and we have Cameron Gloss and Melissa Ruth on the call today, and they're going to be the ones kind of presenting. And they've been now in town over the last 2 weeks, about 4 days, doing stakeholder interviews, both at the rec center and fire station number 3. It's been a collaborative effort between the city and the county on these stakeholder interviews. We're talking stakeholder interviews of both the city and the county. And tonight, really what we're going to do is kind of, like I said, provide you just an introduction into the project and where we're at, and also get a chance to hear Cameron and Melissa kind of speak to the project and get introduced to them as well as our consultants. And so far, everything has been going really well, we believe. We've been able to gather a lot of great information. Logan Simpson is spending a significant amount of time in fact gathering at the moment too, through reading studies and plans and looking at our zoning maps. We even started and kicked off this process with a full day tour of the community, going to these different areas and physically driving out and looking at these sites. And those things are really important for our consultants to start to grasp our community. Both of them are actually familiar with our community, which is kind of nice. And so it wasn't a complete like, hey, welcome to Laramie. But with that, what I think I'm going to do is let Cameron and Melissa kind of tell them who they are and about this project, and then they do have a presentation to go through. And so I think I'll turn it over to you guys. So thanks.
Perfect. Welcome.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. We appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I do have a brief presentation I want to share with you. It's a little bit of a walkthrough, but more than anything, we want to hear from you, what your first impressions are and some different comments.
That sounds great. We should just move right into that. Looks like it. Okay.
I'm going to try this again, just a second.
No worries.
Mr. Mayor and Mr. Glass, if you would like, I can screen share and you could tell me next slide when you're ready.
That would be great. That would be great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
City clerk to the rescue. It happens a lot.
Yeah.
Not a problem, Mr. Glass. It's how it goes. There we go.
All right, very good. So as Derek said, we've been at it for a few weeks now, and kind of a soft launch. Next slide of the plan. And tonight just a real brief overview and a little bit about what we've been hearing from some of those folks that we've been interviewing, and getting some feedback from you. Most importantly, next slide. So this is our team. Just real quickly, Logan Simpson, we're out of Fort Collins. That's the office that's leading the effort. We also have multiple offices in the western part of the country, mostly Arizona. And one of the key partners that we have on this project is Stantec, and they're civil engineers out of their Wyoming offices, and they're really helping us understand, I think, a lot of what Brooks was just talking about with the utility provision. And we'll be modeling then utilities, the whole range within the urban area, try to get a sense for that. And then we have an economic consultant that's going to kind of have us take a look at that data that's generated about utility services and other costs, and try to understand what the fiscal implications are. And then lastly, as we get into sort of the potential code writing and the intergovernmental agreement between the city and county, we've got some legal counsel to make certain that we're following all the statutory requirements. Next slide. So wanted just to impress upon everybody, you have the comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2007, and that really encompasses the city and then the surrounding county within, they called it an urban growth area at the time. It's this 1 mile limit from basically the present city limits out. And so the focus, though, of this effort, of this joint growth plan, is to really look at that ring around the city. Obviously, there are implications for both the city and the county, but it's primarily think of that ring. So next slide. So you can see in this image that the area in red being the city limits, and then the purple boundary being that 1 mile beyond, again referred to as the urban growth boundary within the existing comp plan. But honestly, that's just a sort of imaginary line that the state has required of communities. And we think through this process we might be expanding that boundary a little bit. When you think about urban service provision, I said what the ultimate footprint of the city would be, and there may be some places that it would shrink as well. Next slide. So our project has 4 distinct phases, and as Derek said, really we're in the fact-finding mode at this point. So we've been collecting all sorts of data, GIS, Geographic Information System data, all different topics, creating a series of maps, sort of baseline, and then really important, it's listening. We're here to understand the sort of the nuances of these community members, whether they be property owners, developers, people with all sorts of interests. Maybe it's environmental, more social types of things. And that's really, it's been the last couple of months. And then the meat of this is the second phase. We're going to go over the schedule here a little bit more, but basically we're going to analyze, take all that data that we put together. We'll do what we call an opportunities and constraints analysis, and then come up with some different scenarios and work with the community to say, okay, what's the preferred growth pattern within this area? And with all that, assessing kind of what are the impacts of the city and the county to do that. And then we get into sort of the end of the summer, kind of circling back to everybody saying, okay, this is what we came up with. What do you think? And then we'll look at potential changes to your development standards, looking at what a basics of maybe an intergovernmental agreement might be to implement the plan. And then, really you get into the fall, and that's when, that would be sort of the final documentation phase. But so think of it this way, that really the meat of this is between right now and the end of July. So that's a pretty fast pace as these projects go. So we hope to generate a lot of excitement and through the summer months as the weather's better to really get people involved. So next slide. So as Derek said, we had a great tour of the area and went to various sites and really got a sense for what's on the ground. We collected a lot of data, and then we created a public involvement plan. Next slide. And that public involvement plan has it's a multi-pronged approach. So we do a lot of in-person work, like these meetings that we just started, and they can be one-on-one, small groups. We're going to have a lot of what we call pop-up events, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then presentations to a lot of different groups. We're going to have sessions even tomorrow with the Rotary Club as an example. A lot of online engagement. So we have a project webpage linked to both city and county. We do a lot of questionnaires to get feedback. So it's really a way for us to frankly blanket the community and get touch points with a lot of different groups and individuals. So we try to make certain that we get an opportunities for everybody to get involved. Next slide. So this is just an example of what you might see out there. So we have if you look on the lower right, we have a QR code, so you can go in there and link on that QR code, take a photo, and it'll take you to city and Albany County's websites. Pretty handy. And then you can go take questionnaires, and there's the ability then to then very quickly get more information. That tells you a little bit more about the schedule, and then we'll be updating this obviously as the project moves along. Next slide. And then this is the public event schedule. Now, this is a draft. And you'll note some dates that have already come and gone, where we've been having the meetings, as Derek said, with these stakeholders. And then we'll be getting into, a lot of discussion, as I mentioned, will be in the next couple of months. So both farmers markets for the county and the city, you'll have Jubilee days. So you'll see us a lot that whole week. And then you'll have these different opportunities there that actually fill in from these. So you can see that you're going to see our team literally out on the streets a lot during the months of June and July. And then we, as I said, we'll get into kind of circling back with everybody back in August and September. And then really by, the end of October, we'll have the components of the project will be completed and ready for that adoption process. So next slide. So, we've been hearing a lot of things, some we really anticipated. There's a little bit of a surprise. Next slide. So, I just try to encapsulate what we've heard this last week. And again, these are, and by no means it's supposed to be exhaustive. It's just kind of what's some of the common threads that we've heard from our stakeholder groups. And, the first thing, and no surprise to anybody, it's really housing. People are all saying that you need more housing, whether it's business entity or it's somebody in sort of the residential real estate field, whoever you talk to, you need more housing at all different price points and types of housing. A lot of comments about the difference in development standards between the city and the county. And I think there's a recognition that it's more rigorous in the city, and that's okay with some people and maybe not so in others. And then, getting sort of this sweet spot between the development standards in the city and the county. We've been asking people that question. So far, kind of hard to find a sweet spot. We've heard from many that the community gateways need to be enhanced, and people offered a lot of different techniques for that. Something we'll be getting more in tune with over the next couple of months, talking about that, and just really underscoring what you just talked about is how utilities, and we mentioned sewer and water here, but actually electric as well. It's really going to be a major driver of growth within this ring around Laramie. It's absolutely front and center. And then lastly, this joint growth area is not all the same. It's distinctly different in areas, both physically and, I think the pattern of development. So we're going to have to treat these areas differently as we go through our analysis. Next slide. So we've teed up some questions and hope to have a lively discussion with you tonight. So just, first of all, kind of a big target, but, think about this as council members. What would you be your biggest goal or outcome? And that's the first question. And then you can see the other ones here. I think we just can go through these. And then, obviously, these are just a teaser. And if there are other questions that come to mind, that other comments you want to offer based on what we just presented or what you know about the issues facing the area, we'd love to hear from you. So I'd like to just focus on this right now, if that's okay.
I think it's more than okay. I think it's great. I think that's what we should be doing with this work session. So let's open it up for counselors. And first up, we have Councilmember Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor, and appreciate the presentation and you guys coming to council to kind of share the plan going forward. So I do have maybe two questions on what you presented. One is regarding timeline, and I'm always leery. I know that when the council passed the request to get this done, there was a significant discussion about the timeline and wanting to make sure that we could complete this in a timely fashion this year. And I see that it's not planned to come to county and city council until November. I guess the question is, A, can that be done faster at the end of the process? And B, do you have any concerns that we're not going to be able to make even that timeline?
Yeah, I feel confident that we can meet the timeline as we've shown. My experience with these types of projects is sometimes they can actually get a little bit bogged down at the end. In the approval process. I think there's a little bit of wiggle room. We could maybe, if it was absolutely needed, to bump things up, accelerate another week or so, if that was needed. I think we could accommodate it in our schedule. This is fast. I would say my experience doing plans of this type, it's usually a longer process. It's not necessarily a bad thing that it's quicker. Though what I like about a faster process is you generate excitement, and people have to stick with it for a shorter time. There's a fatigue factor when these plans get too long, these processes, that you find that the level of involvement starts dropping after a certain point. That you can't just keep people's enthusiasm up. So I think that's a real benefit of doing it faster. And if we do our jobs in making certain that we really broadcast the meetings, we get out there and get a lot of people involved, I don't think you're going to hear the criticism, but a lot of that's on us. And I want to give a shout out to the city and the county staff. So far, it's gone really well. I think our partnership, working together as a team, they've really helped. And you've got a great staff here, and I could extend that to the county as well. So, I'm optimistic.
I appreciate that. I'm certainly on the side of wanting to get this done timely and quickly and kind of get this moved through this year. The second question I had based on your presentation was you keep talking about stakeholder groups. can you share with us a list and maybe talk a little bit about how that list was generated?
Yeah.
So we're making sure that we're not maybe just concentrating in one area of the community or one particular, kind of same set of people that are involved in different organizations, but we're getting out more broadly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure, as we go through, and I don't have the exhaustive list right in front of me, but I can just go through some of the groups, organizations that we've met with so far. So, we have the Cattlemen's Association, and we really want to make certain that somebody from the farm and ranch community would be participating. And we've had individuals that have been concerned with the Aquifer Protection Plan, so more on the sort of environmental side. We've heard from development interests, economic development interests. So we met with a state agency earlier today, talking more broadly about economic development opportunities and partnerships with the state. A lot of, probably not surprising, landowners that are within this area, folks that are in the engineering industry, talked to a few people there, special districts. We talked to your Southern Water and Sewer District earlier today. Folks that are involved in different aspects of development, frankly. So land developers, people that are more in the construction or building industry. So again, a really a very broad range. I mentioned the Rotary. There are other groups that we're anticipating we're going to get out to and do some road shows to them. So, trying to hit sort of the obvious ones is the development community, but then, others that also have interest, again, whether it's more social types issues, it's more environmental, hitting all of those areas is really important. And then, with the broader outreach, if you looked at the events that we have, you'll see that some events are more in the county, literally, like the county farmers market. Then we have some events that are downtown. We'll have some associated more at the university. The university we did interview earlier today. I think we're going to have a more expanded conversation with them later with more of their leadership. So that, I hope that's gives you a sense of the representation that we're shooting for.
It does. Thank you.
I, for one, appreciate the comparatively fast schedule for this plan. I think that's really something that was a goal from the beginning, and we should stick to it. Other questions? You see the list there. I'm going to encourage council members, Mr. Glass and Melissa, just jump, Ms. Ruth, to just jump around on those questions you've listed there. I don't know that it really matters, right?
No, it doesn't. Yeah, I think they all have a lot of merit. It's again, it's a challenging project in a lot of ways. Trying to get the city and the county working together. That's a major step. And then all the different opinions you're going to get in a community of this size with different interests. So we'd love to hear from you.
Let me ask you this, both of you. Are you, and I imagine you are, given the background you gave us at the beginning, but are you quite familiar with the history of the what we used to call the donut planning area and the changes that have taken place in the last 10 years? I imagine so, yes?
Yes, we have. We've poured through all of your planning documents, from basically all of your adopted plans, including your comprehensive plan. Looked at obviously the Aquifer Protection Plan, which Stan Tech is our sub-consultant. You might know this, that they're the ones leading that update right now. We've been sort of tracking things up here, looking at all the development entitlements in the city and the county over the last several years. So what's trending? And what type of activity is happening on the, either on the ground getting built? What are some different visions people have had that maybe have come and gone, that they were never realized? So we're really trying to get a good picture for, so what's the physical, not just the physical landscape, but the political and, the sort of the investments that people are, contemplating on these properties.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I was just about to say, let me be a little bit more direct, but you touched on it there at the end. Essentially, what we're doing now is rebuilding what used to be a statutory authority on a smaller scale, where now the county government is recognizing, I think, along with us as partners, that there probably is every reason in the world to have a growth area development plan. It may not need to be, within, a 1 mile radius of every inch of the city limit border, right? But we want to look at those areas. So I appreciate that. I have a second question, because I still don't see a lot of hands popping up. People might be feeling a little, okay, good. My second question is, what do you see as the major barriers for this question of the development standards sweet spot? Because I can tell you from my perspective, and I'll just be very blunt, I think it's the difference between very, very little and a unified development code. And it's very difficult to bridge that. But we're going to have to do that with this plan, I think. And I'm very curious to see what we come up with. I understand there may need to be some more conversations before you feel comfortable giving a more robust answer. But if you could take a crack at it.
Yeah, I have to say, based on the conversations, it's going to be tricky.
Yeah.
You have expectations of the county. I'll give you an example of road standards. So, you have developers in the county just outside the city that say, I really don't want to build curb, gutter, and sidewalk, or even pave the road. I kind of like this rural gravel thing, and people that are buying my lots, they don't care about driving down a gravel road, or all year round. They don't mind, and so that's pretty far from an urban street cross section. So we're gonna just keep listening and see if we can find maybe some issues, I call them the critical few, where we can agree that it makes sense for the city and the county to have basically the same standards in this growth area. It's kind of early to say. I was expecting that, so far that we would have at least a few things we could point to and say, oh yes, absolutely, do this. In my mind, those things have not come up just yet.
Early days yet, though. Early days.
Yep. Oh, definitely. And it'll be interesting as we go out to the broader community, because, this is very, these are specific interests that people have. And when we get out to the broader community, it's going to be fascinating to see what their perspective is.
For sure. Well, I appreciate your attempt there at what's probably the hardest question, or one of them. Councilmember Gabriel, I saw a hand up and a hand down, just making sure that you changed your mind on a question before I move on.
I'll go with a question.
Go for
it. Curious about the housing situation, single-family homes. Council has had some really positive proposals before us here of late, proving in the Indian Hills, northeastern part of the city. And of course, like all communities, we're in a big demand for that. I was just kind of curious, your opinion on maybe some further growth in that area for single family other than northeastern part of the city?
Well, I have to say, in the last several interviews we've had, there has been discussion about, geographically, where do you focus growth? And I guess it's really, a lot of it is about utilities. And we also, a fair number of people said that the aquifer protection area is something that we just have to be so mindful of in terms of what is getting built. So it's kind of too early to say exactly, but it's starting, sort of ideas are starting to emerge about where, and I would say probably let's put it this way: certain areas are going to be a lot easier to grow into than others, either because of the pattern of existing development or the availability or lack of availability of utilities in aquifer. You put all those things together, and I do think once we start mapping this very soon, I think in the next, frankly, the next 2 to 3, 4 weeks, we're going to have a lot better picture, and I can answer that question better.
Great. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gabriel. And for the two of you, I hope maybe in some ways some of the content of the council questions here can help you shape a little bit of your approach too, right? Even if there's not ready answers now, I think that's one of the valuable things about doing this. So hopefully that's some of what you'll get out of this. Councilmember O'Doherty.
To go with Councilor Somerville first. I have lame questions.
Well, but it's actually your turn, not Councilmember Somerville.
I thought she had her hand up before me. So I was just thinking, I don't want people that live outside the city to freak out thinking that we're trying to annex everything, because I personally have no interest in annexing anything that doesn't want to be part of the city and doesn't have paved roads, because then we will be spending the rest of the century trying to figure out how to even out the spending in where there aren't paved roads and where there are. So I just want to put that out there, that I personally have no interest in annexing. If somebody is building a new development, and yeah, let's talk about it, and they want to be part of the city, but I don't want people in the county freaking out thinking that we're trying to go after their property, and sometimes an icon could land on their land when we're making maps, and they think that that means we're coming to get them. So I don't want to go there. Thanks.
That wasn't a lame question at all. It was kind of a comment, but go ahead if you have a response, Cameron.
Well, yeah, you make a good point. And what I'm sensing is that, yeah, there were some people we met with, just reading between the lines, they have the same fear. They don't want to be annexed. They fear the level of regulations is going to be too much in the city. And, we've heard that pretty loud and clear. At the same time, I think there's some other areas, so there's different areas within this sort of this joint growth area that are much more, I think, apt to want to annex, want to get the full range of urban services that only the city can provide. But there may be some other areas where, it may not be in the city's best interest to annex. I can list a whole host of reasons that you'd be assuming a lot of liability, infrastructure costs that would be pretty high. And, I think as you were saying, people that don't necessarily want to come in anyway.
I want to tack something onto that. I in no way can speak for the county government. I don't intend to. However, I do have regular conversations with county elected officials, and one thing that kind of came up in this conversation that is of interest is that there's also a considerable fiscal burden with having a large concentration of dense neighborhoods in the county that are not integrated into the rest of the infrastructure systems. And that is a concern from a fiscal perspective for the county moving forward. And so I think that's an element of this discussion as well. I don't know that needs a response at this time. I know that that's an element of this discussion as well. But I do appreciate this line of conversation about, well, we're not really looking to annex people that don't want to be annexed. At the same time, if there are burgeoning developments there on the city limits, sometimes feet away, then I think it becomes a different conversation, right? Cameron, I'll give you a crack at anything you want to add to that as well. But again, I don't expect a lot of developed answers at this point.
Yeah, well, I will just have to sort of state that with the two components that we're going to be working on next when we start modeling potential growth is to look at the utility system and really the whole range of other services as well. We'll take a stab at some of the others like fire protection, which kind of go hand in hand with water as well. And then we'll also look at the physical impact and, share that information with both city and county, and it'll be up to them to be making some decisions, but that will be part of the analysis.
I appreciate that. I wonder if in your conversations you might, as you start to broaden this out, as just a Laramie resident, one thing that I fear for the community is some growth patterns that we've seen in other parts of the state where the city itself becomes ringed with unincorporated subdivisions almost in its entirety. And, you know, you'll go out for a mile and there's subdivisions, county subdivisions, but they're not actually part of the city. But you wouldn't know it unless you were looking at the map. And I think that becomes a tricky situation. We should get to Councilmember Somerville. It is her second time around, but she's had to wait for me to blather on a lot. Thank you, Councilmember Somerville. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor, and no worries on that. I think you and Councilmember Doherty touched on just kind of what I guess I wanted to start out with feedback to the consultants. So my overall goal is to get an intergovernmental agreement with the county and really establish this. I mean, it's been several years since the statute changed and it's long overdue. And I think it hampers any conversations about development because we don't have this type of agreement. I am very concerned about being ringed in with non-compatible developments in the county areas around the city. I do recognize that not all of the development areas are going to look the same. But I think the other concern that I have, and you touched on it just a little bit as the Councilor Doherty, is the road standards conversation. I think it's incredibly important for the city and county to be working together on building out infrastructure across this donut, especially in specific areas, really to be fiscally responsible and how that all comes together. But, you know, in Laramie, as Councilor Doherty stated, we already have a legacy of annexing a county subdivision with no road standards. And we're 60 years into that annexation and we still don't have roads out there. We're just barely starting to scratch the surface. So we already have that legacy here within the city of Laramie. And it certainly would be my preference not to repeat that. Now, I don't know what that looks like in the long term. You know, if a county subdivision, everything can line up and it looks great, and maybe we can figure out a way to give them, 10 or 15 years to spread out the cost of building that infrastructure or whatever that might look like. But at the end of the day, I would certainly like to see, especially probably within the 1.5 mile, that infrastructure be able to be built out, or in other areas like the northeastern section of the city where we're seeing housing growth, make sure that we're maybe building those out earlier as it's appropriate. So we're not leaving a fiscal liability for the city at some point in time if they are annexed for a variety of reasons. Which again, in Laramie, we have that history. West Laramie was not annexed because they necessarily wanted to be. They were annexed because they had to be for water and sewer services. So those are kind of my concerns, kind of touching on your questions there. And I do think that actually having a growth plan and an intergovernmental agreement I'm hoping that will actually build some positive momentum towards appropriate development. Since we're removing the unknown question, which I always hear from developers, that's more scary than knowing that they'll have to pay for something. It's the unknown quantity. Thank you.
That's great. All right, council members, who's on deck? Vice Mayor Pierce.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I don't really have anything significant to add to the conversation. I think I'd just like to agree with all of what's been said. I fully support moving this timeline up if at all possible. I feel like the biggest goal is basically what Councilor Somerville mentioned, having that agreement and getting everybody on the same page and really recognizing, the potential opportunities and cost saving opportunities and areas where we can have really good and smart growth. I think that's what we have to really look at. And in terms of your other questions there, I think we're all in the process of learning and I think you've started out pretty well, in your stakeholder group. I think that's great. And I think you're absolutely right. The stakeholders, that you've mentioned are going to be of one view, but John Doe on the street, I think that'll really be interesting to kind of compare and contrast what you hear at a farmer's market. And I don't know how much data you're going to be gathering, to find out their background and what of the stakeholder groups they might fall into, right? So I think that'll be interesting, and I really look forward to this. I think this is absolutely overdue. I'm glad we're doing it. I'm glad we've got the momentum going, and I think we need to continue this long term. Because this is important for not only this community, Albany County, but every community in the state of Wyoming is absolutely faced with the same issues, right? Because of how we've been legislatively structured and the requirements or mandates given to us by our state elected officials. So I think this is important for Laramie, and I think it's in Albany County, and truly, beyond us. I mean, I'm sure other communities in the state are kind of in the same boat, and I don't expect them all to be the same either. So I think this is great. Thank you so much for this. I'm pleased and just thrilled that you were able to be with us tonight and kind of share some of this information, with the council. And I really look forward to your good work. So thank you.
Thanks.
It's very valuable for us. Councilmember O'Doherty.
I just wanted to mention that what I forgot when I was saying the stuff before is that indeed when people build developments right on the edge of the city, they're taking advantage of city, like they want to live there because they work in the city, they shop in the city. And I remembered that our emergency services come from the city. So yeah, it does have a big impact. And if somebody wants to build like a sarin gas plant on the edge of Laramie, I would like us to have a little say about that. Like, yeah, let's not create toxins right on our border, even if it's not, so if the county had a regulation like that, that would be great for the city dwellers to not have toxins right on our that are polluting the city. Just wanted to add that. That's all. Thanks.
Okay. I'd like to take a stab at something here, which is that you've really posed some questions for us, and I don't know that I've really done my best effort to try to answer some of these. You've heard, and I think you'd hear across the board that the goal here, an outcome for the plan, is to have a plan, right? But I think second place, a strong second place, nipping at the heels, and you already touched on this, is to try to figure out how we can encourage development of housing, I think, within the community, within these opportunity areas for growth. I think that's another big goal. And that leads into the next question. Should it be the case that some of what we have going on for the city, within the city limits, is really just detrimental to meeting some of those housing goals? Maybe how this could positively impact the development review processes through perhaps taking a look at the some new kinds of zoning, some types of flex zoning or new types of zoning areas that we're going to encourage housing, but wouldn't cause us to sacrifice some of what we've implemented and become used to within the city of Laramie proper. Maybe there's some opportunities there. I don't know. That's pretty technical. I don't know enough about that to say, but I want to recognize it as a possibility. And kind of along the lines of Councilor Doherty's last piece there, I don't think we'd want to rule out development for commercial or industrial uses in some of these areas. I think that's certainly something we'd want on the table, but the question is the fit and what are those things and where. Certainly there are places that you could probably look at that map that you showed us at the beginning, and we could say, boy, we wouldn't want a meat packing plant there. But there might be some other places where we'd say, you know, that might not be such a terrible thing, or something along those lines. I don't want to be too specific, but I think that might be a positive impact. And I think that ties into your fourth question, is for us to work with the city and the county together and say, these are areas where I think we probably both agree as local governments where housing development is probably more attractive and more ideal. And these are areas where maybe commercial industrial type uses might seem to be a better fit, where we could coordinate together. And then I think for your last question, I think what I've seen approach wise, and this is always the $1 million question, right, is how do you get people to let you know what they really think about this stuff so you can incorporate that. I think what you've presented to us seems as reasonable as anything in terms of approach. Nothing's perfect, right? We wish we could get, the maximum amount of response as possible. We want everybody in town to say, here's what I really think about all these detailed planning issues. It's not going to happen. I think the approach that you're taking is pretty reasonable. I think the city and the county are both really concerned about housing and economic development, and I'm increasingly convinced that those are almost the same issue in some ways. So when we work on this, it's kind of holistically working on those two things. And that's just my attempt a little bit to try to do a better job of answering those questions you've posed for us. Council members, some of us, we haven't heard from some of you yet, and I know you've got some feelings and opinions about it. So here's me crowbarring you into it. Let's see what you think. I'm going to start calling people by name here. Councilmember Schmeckel, I know you have thoughts on this. I know you have expertise in this area. Let's try to help these folks out a little bit.
I do have some thoughts on this, and I will say that the majority of my questions have already been asked by our colleagues. I will say that here earlier this month, I was downtown and ran into one of the teams that was trying to gather input, and they had just set up, so they weren't able to share anything with me. But it was good to see them out and about. Knowing that we have some economic development opportunities up in Sierra Sky and what that might look like is an area of concern for me, and seeing where we can collaborate and help drive some more funding back into the community, as well as the university potentially, for sustaining economic development efforts is a large concern. But knowing that we have the WAPA up there, that maybe not all the pieces are in place so that we can get some development up there. What other kind of the big picture infrastructure items are we missing? That's a question I'm looking for, to know that we missed out on an opportunity to get some data centers here and to really commercialize some ideas coming out of the university or connections through the blockchain initiative. That actually have a value proposition behind them, I think is an interesting area. I think that there's opportunities to potentially collaborate with the university. I know that there's a large university spinout that is in talks with the university for how they can grow here in Laramie, and I'm curious if there's ways to collaborate in such a fashion that the university can help drive some of the conversation, as well as potentially open up some resources that maybe we don't ordinarily have, as well as some expertise in the area. Those are areas that I'm concerned in. But I also don't want to, spoil the sample selection ahead of time by putting my opinion out there just yet. So,
yeah. Thank you for those comments, Councilmember Schmeckel. Yes, Councilmember Schuster, thank you.
I really didn't want to say much because, yes, a lot of our colleagues have...
We're having a sound issue, Mr. Schuster. Sorry.
Wow, my mic's on too.
Give you a second.
Do I have to go?
Yep, we have you now. There you go.
Do you have me now? Try one more time. We good?
Yep.
Okay. The mics hadn't been turned on in here yet. The company I work for is almost in panic mode. we need to hire 30 professionals. And right now, one of the biggest deterrents in everything is finding housing, because most of our professionals have experience, families, and everything else, and the housing market here is terrible. We're thinking about starting a small housing area explicitly for our hires, where they would get 1 year of reduced housing cost to get them into Laramie, to be able to look around, to try to be able to get something. That's basically, it sounds like how desperate we are, is we're willing to almost start our own little area and build only for our people, which sounds terrible. But right now, what is there on the housing market? 5 houses? Under 10. We need 30. So do I see this as a really big problem, our opportunity to growth? We want to bring in a box store. We want to bring in, I'll go for it, we want to bring in a Chick-fil-A. I really like that place. So, I mean, I see this as a really, really, really big problem. And yes, we're getting boxed in. I see developments going on every single side of town. Do we probably have an opportunity to expand for the next 15 years? Yes, we do. Even with the small developments outside of town, we have enough areas behind Walmart. We're going to put in Bill Nye. There'll be a good opportunity there. Been here long enough that we've had people that said they wanted to build on the other side of Spring Creek. I've been here long enough that we've had 2 different developments come through the Planning Commission when I was there, on the other side of Curtis Street, out in West Laramie, past the truck stop, and out there. So we have enough property for a little while, but we have nobody building. And yes, our building standards are tougher than the counties, but there are standards. Is it going to be reasonable? No, it's not. Everything we do adds to the cost of a house. Unless we're really going to relax some stuff, we're going to have expensive houses here in Laramie. And I see that is it. We are really considering investing in some property inside the city limits and building a small development just to try to bring in new hires for our company, for the company I work for. I shouldn't say our company, but the company I work for. So there's my 2 cents on it. We need housing. We need housing desperately.
Appreciate that, Councilmember Schuster. That gives you a little peek at maybe a specific organization having a problem that we've heard about universally from our economic development partners. I'm going to touch on, too, that I really liked Councilmember Schmeckel's point about identifying critical infrastructure areas. If we want to get these places to be seen as areas for potential development, particularly with housing, I think it's going to be wise of the city and the county to say, here's where we need to put pipe in. And that's going to be, a high priority. And the timing might be good. We may be able to get some federal assistance with those things as we move forward. So definitely the time is right to be saying, here's where we need to drop some pipe, among other things. Okay, and I know there's a lot more to it than that. It's just my little shorthand way of saying infrastructure. Appreciate those last couple of comments, folks. Councilmember Cumby, I saw you had a hand up a little bit ago.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think many of the questions that have arisen for me have been posed by a number of council members, and I feel satisfied regarding that. One of the things that I wanted to ask about is related to communication and your ability to connect with the community. You talked about that you have done interviews currently at the rec center and fire station number 3. And then you mentioned plans for pop-up events, one-on-one small groups. You plan to blanket the community.
Councilmember Cumby, we lost you a sentence or two ago on the
Sorry
same.
about that. That you plan to create opportunities for everybody to get involved. And you mentioned that you will be attending the Rotary Club tomorrow. You mentioned online engagement, the use of QR codes, etc. And then you talk about stakeholders, and Councilor Somerville asked if you could list some of who you're considering stakeholders, and you did some of that. And sometimes stakeholders approach the city and development from a particular way because of a vested interest, whereas other members of the community may not see it that way. And my comments come from a recent meeting that we had where council voted on an agenda related to zoning. It had been in process for about a year, and it had been in a process of public meetings for many months. Yet, when it came down to the third vote, there were members of our community, and these are professional members, these are informed people that seem blindsided by the whole thing. And so I'm just curious about your methods and approaches for finding people and reaching people in all areas of the city, within all strata, and within all kind of subgroups, etc. It's just a daunting task.
Well, we can appreciate your comment that it's daunting. It is. We know from experience that one thing that we do when we do the questionnaires, we can ask people where they're from, like a particular neighborhood, and then we can see how those are distributed to make certain that we get a distribution that is more blanketing the community, so we're hitting all corners. That's one technique that we've used successfully in other communities. Getting out, honestly, to city, I hate to say it, but places where people that tend to live in the city would frequent versus people that are living in the county. All of these are techniques that we use. We try to get out in the community as opposed to saying, okay, good example would be come to City Hall and provide comment. Well, that's not very exciting for a lot of people to do that. It's a lot more appealing, frankly, if there's a convenient way for, frankly, us as a team to come to them, whether it's like tomorrow going to the Rotary Club and giving a presentation, or meeting with an HOA, or going to one of these events. And so when you think about Jubilee Days and the number of individuals that are probably in a pretty wide cross-section of the community, if you look at the sort of the schedule of events and the variety that's there, our hope is that we can hit those events and get that variety, whether it's people that are more frankly in the farm and ranch areas, so to speak, or they're interested in some other aspect of cultural resources, whatever it is, their sort of their area of passion is, that we can hit those different things, those different events that will get a good cross section. We do try to assess and be honest with ourselves too as we get through the process to say, we really missed a group or a series of groups or a geographic area of the community. Let's turn our attention to doing more for them so that we can literally say with, a straight face and honestly to ourselves, we've really got a cross section of the community. It's if you look at the number of hours we're spending on this project, we're attributing more of it to community engagement than any other aspect. It is time and labor intensive. And that's the way we scoped the project. We knew, particularly going into this, that it was on a short time frame, that's what we would have to do. So I hope that helps. The proof is in what happens. And so, it's sort of like check back in a few months after we've gone out there and I guess we'll see what those numbers look like.
Go ahead with your follow-up, Councilmember Cumby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cameron, I'm just assuming that not only will you'll be trying to target and meet with groups from all socioeconomic strata in the city, and sometimes some of those at lower income are a lot harder to reach because of demands of family and work and etc. And so are you planning then to maybe contact the faith community, the nonprofit organizations, to utilize them to get a better sense of some of our lower income populations?
Yes, to answer that, we do intend fully to focus on the underrepresented populations. For example, we do have one member of our staff who Spanish is her first language. She does a lot of our public meetings to communicate with Spanish-speaking groups, as an example. We do tend to rely heavily on the nonprofit groups to help inform us about the best way to get involved with folks that are underrepresented. So that is always a consideration with any of the planning that we do.
And are you seeking suggestions for individuals that we might or that might be considered key informants for these various groups?
Absolutely, we're all ears. You know the community better than we, and I have to just tip my cap to the staff because they really helped us get the stakeholder list that we've I think been very effective so far, meeting with people. They know the community and like much better than we do. We're getting a better feel for it. And as I said earlier, I mean, for us, in large part, particularly at the stage of the process, we're here to listen, not to come to conclusions or dictate anything. We can tell you our professional experience working in other communities, what's worked and what's not worked there. But frankly, every community is different, and every project has got some nuances. Even if you're talking about a growth area in another town, like a similar Western community, still not the same. So we're going to rely heavily on you and your planning commission, the county staff, the county planning and zoning commission, county commissioners. Yeah, we're ready to hear any recommendations you have about contacts. Because as I always say, there's nothing more powerful than word of mouth. You can get an advertisement about a public meeting, but it's a heck of a lot more effective if your friend says to you, "Hey, there's a great meeting coming up. I think you'd really enjoy it, and you'd want to be involved." And that's what we need to build on.
Thank you so much. And I just want to conclude by saying I'm so excited about this process. I think we're at a time in our development and the work that's going on between the city and the county and the collaborative processes I just think this is a fantastic time to do this, and I think it has great potential. And I just look forward to supporting you and the process in any way I can. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Cumbie. I'm really glad to hear you speak to, that common sense, but sometimes elusive issue of every community being different. And for such a small community, I'd like to share an observation with you that I hope is helpful, which is that for such a small community, we do seem to have some distinct orbits or centers of gravity with ways to reach out to people. And I'm glad you mentioned a couple of times now the ag groups, and that makes me think of folks that are the 4-H sponsors, that are the sponsors of the Jubilee Days celebration and the rodeos and things like that. Then you have maybe what we might call sort of the University of Wyoming orbit, the local business community orbit, and those things. Yeah, there's some overlap, but there are also some distinctions there. They all serve as a center of gravity for some of these different folks that might have differing opinions about that. And Councilmember Schuster, are you speaking to the council on purpose there, or did you leave your microphone on? And I'll go over to Mr. Teeny here, and then I have one last question for you, but I'm going to let Mr. Teeny have his moment. And then Councilmember Schmeckel, I saw a hand up and down, so if you've got something, raise it up again. Go ahead, Mr. Teeny.
Yeah, Mayor, just really briefly, Council, if you have somebody you think that would be good to interview, email Philip or I, and we'll get it to our consultants. You have both of Philip and I's emails, so just shoot us a quick email, who it is. If you have a contact phone number or email or something, that should be enough to get us what we need, and we'll reach out. That's all we need, and so that's all I was going to mention.
Thank you. Absolutely, that's a great way to channel that information through our community development people to you guys to help your effort here, because we may think of a different group. Also appreciate the recognition of the nonprofit, another center of gravity, nonprofit groups and the folks that they're working with. Councilmember Schmeckel.
Thank you, Mayor. Just had a lunch with a constituent here today who mentioned that a construction project has begun next to her property, and she felt like she wasn't properly notified, and she suggested using the landfill and recycling app as a means to notify constituents of stuff like this. Not only putting out this marvelous website that we saw earlier this evening of the different projects, but also putting a survey content out like this. And maybe an excuse for us to promote the existence of this app, which I am embarrassed to admit I didn't know existed until she told me about it.
Good point. Good point. I wanted to ask you, folks, in addition to thanking you once again for timing this meeting at the beginning, critical and helpful for us, but is there anything you haven't heard or that we haven't touched on that maybe you were hoping to get out of this meeting tonight that we as the council members might be able to throw your way, or some information we might be able to add to this? I don't think Councilmember Schuster knows that mic is on. So is there anything we can help you out with?
Okay, this was a great conversation from our perspective. Really appreciate, all the discussion. It's helping us to get our, our arms around all of the challenges and opportunities. So we're excited about working on this project. It's we love the Laramie community. Feel really honored to be up here. If we go to the next slide, I want to just offer that we have, and one more, please. That we're going to be appreciating that you made some offers tonight to amplify the outreach efforts. That you've seen the schedule now. You've even offered to provide additional contacts to the staff they can pass on to us. And really, as we get out there in the community, talk it up. And hopefully you enjoy the conversations that you have with our team when you're out there. And again, encourage others to do that. It's the power is going to be really through word of mouth here. So thank you very much.
All right. I appreciate that. And I think that gives me my answer. Here are some things we can do to continue to help you. And we appreciate that. Councilmember Gabriel.
Yes, Mayor, I thought maybe I didn't want to go through the entire process without hearing from the other partner in all this, Melissa, and maybe she might have some things she would like to offer to the discussion tonight, maybe her overall impression so far of how the process has been going on.
Good.
Yeah, I'm actually sitting in the same room as Cameron. I'll just walk over to him.
Looks like you folks were given some guest space over there in the annex, the fabulous annex that we occasionally.
Oh, yeah.
All right, good.
Okay. Yeah, no, I've been taking notes the whole time, kind of listening to everything people have to say. And I do appreciate the comments about how we are reaching out to people. It's something we do work really hard on to make sure that we are reaching all aspects of the community, and we definitely welcome any suggestions that you all have to reach additional members of the community or anything else that we can be doing to get people engaged. The other thing I wanted to mention quickly is the public questionnaire. It is up on the city website. It is on the planning page under the growth area plan. So please take the questionnaire, send it to your friends, neighbors, anyone you meet on the street. I think we will also have boards up in the county office and the city offices trying to direct people to that questionnaire. It's kind of the same set of questions that we are asking stakeholders, just in a little bit more of a accessible format for those who are maybe not able to meet in person. We try to provide as many opportunities for people to participate, whether it's online or in person, whatever makes them feel comfortable. We're also happy to take those questionnaires if they have, maybe they don't want to do it on the online, they can give us a call or send us an email or stop by Derek's office and give him feedback in person. We're happy to take kind of any feedback in any way possible. So drive people to the website, public questionnaire. We do have a page, and that is where kind of all of our information will be living, any engagement, and then we'll try to get things out through social media as well. Oh.
Just curious, do you have an opinion on the timeline? Can this be accomplished, you think?
So as Cameron said, it is kind of an expedited timeline. That being said, I don't see any reason why it can't be met. And I think we do have just a little bit of flexibility, but it will come down to kind of the adoption process. So there's, yes, it can be met. There's always things that could happen though, but I don't see why we can't meet that timeline.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to thank you both for emphasizing to this group of elected officials that oftentimes the lengthiest piece of it can become when we get into whether or not we're going to vote to do it or not, and our process. So I think that's key. Thank you for those comments, Melissa, and for your time.
Absolutely.
Let's see if there's public comment on this. Yeah, let's recognize Sarah Gorin. Let Sarah Gorin into the meeting, and you've got the floor.
Hi, I'm Sarah Gorin, and I live at 508 South 11th. Martin Greller and I were interviewed by the Logan Simpson team this morning as representatives of Albany County Clean Water Advocates. And I just wanted to say how impressed we were with the team's interest in the community, how hard they're working on outreach, how much thought they've put into their questions and how they're talking with people. And one of our top concerns was the integration of the growth plan with the CAP update, because obviously the Aquifer Protection Area is right on the edge of the city, and as you all know, it's a subject of intense interest. And Cameron mentioned that and said it was being done before we even got those words out of our mouths. So I'm happy to say that they were on top of it and appreciate that very much. And I know we'll be encouraging people to, get the word out and have input into this plan. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for that. Yeah, all of the little solar systems there in the Laramie universe need to be consulted to the extent of our ability. So actually, as the words come out of my mouth, that sounds like a tremendous amount of work, but we're counting on you. We'll do what we can to help. We'll do what we can to help. Let's see if we have any other public comments. Seeing none. Council, that brings us to one last chance for you before I call this work session a wrap. All right. Seeing none, I think we're ready to close the work session. City Clerk, did we have anything else we needed to cover this evening? All right. Councilmember O'Doherty, I saw your usual last minute hesitant hand. Okay. City Manager Jordan. Anything for us?
Nope, nothing to cover. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much for this. This was a great conversation. We look forward to more. Thank you. Have a good evening. Thanks, planners.